Welcome to Tibera's Den, everyone. My name is Whitney, and welcome back to another speed build. If you haven't checked out Monday's video, definitely do so. Basically, I did the Rainbow Cast Challenge, and so we created my Rainbow Sims. And I know last Friday I had talked about doing a bunch of tiny builds for my Rainbow Sims, but I ended up going with like a family aspect when I was creating my Sims, and so doing a bunch of tiny builds just really did not fit that at all. I still want to do that at some point. I just don't know quite when I'll do it, but it didn't really fit for this family. And so basically for my Rainbow Sims, I created Big Red, who is like the patriarch of the family, and then I created Sienna, who is my orange Sim, and that's his wife, who's like the matriarch of the family. And so they had bought this little place kind of as their retirement. They're in Windenburg on the little island, but they wanted a large area where their daughter and the grandkids and everything could come visit. And it does have like a little, I was calling it mother-in-law quarters when I was creating the Sims, but it's kind of like a little guest house. And so Jade was the primary source of income for the family, and she's in business and ended up losing her job. And so they all moved here, and since Big Red and Sienna, it's just the two of them, it made more sense for them to go into the mother-in-law quarters or the guest house, and Sunny and Jade and the kids moved into the main house. And so that's kind of the situation here. And so since it is my rainbow challenge, I really tried to stick to the colors as best as I could. The hardest ones were the purples. It was really hard trying to get the indigo color and the violet color. It just wasn't quite right. And so I just kind of went with the darker purple and the lighter purple in that situation. But basically, since Big Red and Sienna are in the guest house, that is red, and on the inside it's very orange. Just kind of go along with their color schemes. And then for the main house, I did the bulk of it in the parents' colors, so I did greens and yellows for like the outside and the inside, and then each individual kid's room and bathroom matches their colors. So that's what we are doing today. I'm not sure how I feel about this build. I like a lot of aspects of it, but again, I just feel like I could have maybe done a little better. So as always, if you guys have any tips or tricks, let me know, particularly on the windows and the roof. I'm not as happy with those two aspects of the build. But I did the best I could. And the walkway I had a lot of trouble with as well. But again, I played and played and played and played with it, and finally found something I was happy with and went with that. So now I'm just working on some landscaping. I don't think anybody in the family is much of a gardener. I think maybe Sienna might dabble a little bit, and so I just kept landscaping pretty basic, something that they wouldn't have to spend a lot of time on. But I really don't feel that any of the personalities match gardening, so I didn't want to do like big gardens or like a vegetable garden or anything like that. Now I did go ahead and give them careers and kind of cheat their info and their skills a little bit. So Big Red is a fisherman. I don't know. I figured he would probably have worked outside for most of his life. I'm not necessarily certain that he was a fisherman for that, but maybe around the water doing something like that. But in his retirement, he's kind of picked that up. And so he goes to work early in the morning and fishes, and then comes and spends the rest of his day. I cheated like his dance skill, especially since Sunny is really into music. I didn't necessarily think Big Red or Sienna played at all, but I figured they would definitely have an appreciation for music. And so they both sing and they both are he likes to dance, and so they'll dance together and they sing a lot. And so that's kind of how Sunny started building her love for music, was just watching their enjoyment of it. And so for Sienna, I made her a pastry chef. I went ahead and she did her info and built up that career. So she's a pastry chef. I think she would still do that. They're not really the type of people to fully retire and enjoy life. They like to work, but they like to kind of work for them, for themselves. And so it's not about, necessarily bringing in income. It's more about just working and doing stuff they love. So she likes to cook, and so I made sure all her cooking and baking skills were up. And like I said, they have their cute little house. Still working on the landscape, but you'll see their house in a little while. And then for the other family, for Sunny, again, she is a musician, but she doesn't have high aspirations in that career. She just is doing it because she loves it. And then her daughter Violet will be the one. She loves music as well, and she's really into the violin, but she wants to be successful like on in the orchestra and maybe composing music, things like that. So she definitely wants to take her love for music to a higher level. And I definitely thought all of the kids would have an appreciation for music, just not as much as Violet. So for Indigo, I gave her the keyboard. She would be definitely a little bit more alternative and kind of a punk type vibe to her, so I gave her the keyboard, and there was one in purple, a dark purple, so it was perfect for that. And then for Blue, I gave him a guitar. He's probably not as into music as the rest of them, but like I said, I figured all the kids would kind of have an appreciation for music, and it's definitely something Sunny would have probably wanted each of them to play an instrument. And so he has the guitar, even though he's more into gaming and focusing on getting his degree. And I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with his degree. I know there's a robotics degree, so I might go that route. Just because even though he's into gaming, he's also really smart and he likes to learn. He likes science and he likes learning how things work and the mechanics of things and engineering and such. So I'm really not sure which route. I've had him apply to university already, but of course I haven't really played any of these Sims I'm creating yet. And so I went in and I did have him apply, but I haven't chosen a degree for him yet, and I can't remember all the options. So he might go into robotics, or if there's like some kind of gaming degree, I might go that route with him. Or if there is like an engineering degree, which I think there is, because I think I had one of my other Sims do that degree. He might go that route. I really don't know. Because even though he's really into gaming and a little bit of a geek and such, he's also extremely smart and extremely savvy. And he wants to be successful in life. He kind of gets that from Jade. So it's not just all about gaming and having fun. He really wants to build upon his skills and such. So I'm really excited to kind of see how he goes. And, this that's the kind of the fun thing about creating this save file, is that there's so many Sims. Like, I'm creating all these Sims and I'm really enjoying creating that character. And so it's going to be interesting, to see once I fill up this file a little bit more how I play in it, because I'm not really sure. In the past, I've always focused on one Sim. Even within a family, I really focus on one Sim, where there's so many Sims I want to play already in the save file. That's going to be interesting, kind of jumping around and not necessarily focusing on just one Sim, but in the world as a whole, like in the whole save file and the different worlds and the different Sims building their characters, and just playing with all of them. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. And so even though nobody's really sporty or active, I figured they would like maybe like to go take bike rides. Like they're not necessarily the gym type of people, but they would still like to spend time as a family. So I put down the bikes. I only put down the 5 for Sunny, Jade, and the kids, because I didn't figure Big Red or Sienna would really go for going on a bike ride. And then I did put like a basketball hoop and like a soccer ball. I figured, the kids might mess around with that, even though none of them are really that sporty or active or into fitness. I still figured they would enjoy being outdoors and just spending time as a family with that aspect. So that's why I put down the bikes, and like I said, there's a basketball hoop and a little soccer ball for them to play in. And then out here I'm just working on the backyard. Since Big Red and Sienna do live next door, I figured their area is kind of small, which you'll see, and so I wanted like a big dining room table, and when the weather's nice they could come out and have dinner as a family outside, maybe grill a little bit. I just did like a mini grill because, again, I don't figure any of them are going to be that into grilling or that type of aspect. But they would probably all cook and then, come over. Sienna might make something and Sunny would be in the kitchen, and then they would come over and have dinner together. And then there's also a very large dining room table inside, so if the weather's bad, they can still get together for dinner. And I did put a little hot tub. I figured that's kind of an indulgence Sienna and Big Red might have added when they moved in. And of course, everybody enjoys it now. So, and then I don't know if you guys noticed the flowers around the back. I did those since everything else is based on the parent Sims. I did those in the colors of the kids. So I did the blue for blue, of course, and then I did the dark purple for indigo, and then underneath as a base, I did the violet, light colored purple flowers for violet. So I wanted to add that little aspect since everything else is really based around the parents and the grandparents on the outside. I wanted to add a little bit of a touch of their colors out there as well. And so that's what I did. But now I am working on the inside, and I was really trying to balance the green and the yellow. I know the outside's more green, and so I wanted the inside a little bit more yellow, as far as the walls go and such. And then I did most of the floors and the doors in green, and so that way it wasn't all just like one pop of color. I tried to mix them, and I tried to make it work as best as I could. And now I'm working on Big Red and Sienna's little, like I said, guest house or mother-in-law quarters, whatever you wanted to call it. I wanted to kind of separate the space, but I was having trouble with that. So I ended up moving the staircase to the back, and then I moved the bathroom into the corner. And I did that shape. I was hoping I could make it work, but unfortunately it was not when I play tested it. And so I really struggled with this bathroom in the beginning anyway, because I knew as I was placing it down it wasn't likely to work. And then I finally got kind of placed down where I thought it might potentially work. I didn't have high hopes, and of course when I went to go play test, it didn't. So I did change up the bathrooms in this build just a little bit, which is not included in the screenshots or anything, because I did that after I took the screenshots when I was playtesting and, cheating their info to get the character that I wanted, the skill levels and everything that I wanted. And so you can see inside it is a lot of orange tones instead of the red like the outside is. And I had a hard time. Like, I wanted to balance it like I did on the other side, but it wasn't happening. And so I went with mainly oranges on the inside, and I tucked a little table in there, and I haven't tested that. Hopefully that works since it is under the stairs. I think it will, but I don't know for sure. And so you can see, like I said, very orange kitchen, very basic, and then the living room is very tiny and tight but it should work. I'm hoping, and I did play test that, so they sat and they watched TV. I had to adjust the chairs a little bit because they were getting stuck, which is it's really frustrating when they go in and sit down fine, but when you ask them to stand up and leave, all of a sudden they're trapped and they can't move. It's like, well, you got in there, so get out. like, and so this little bathroom, like I said, I really struggled, and so I ended up just making it a square instead of having that diagonal piece. And even then, as a square, I really had to play with the placement of everything to get it to work. And this bathroom, I couldn't get to work either, which was really, really frustrating, and I don't know why it wasn't working. And so I ended up having to pull the part in front there out along the staircase, so there's a little bump out, and then the sink is right next to the door, and then the toilet is still where I had it up top there, just facing the door instead of facing the other way. And I kind of moved the bathroom around and moved the shower, and so that way those were functional as well, even though since there's two houses on the lot, they intermingle anyway. And I really wish you could, instead of locking the door for everyone but household members, you can unlock the door to specific Sims. I know that would probably be really complicated to do for the game creators, but it's really frustrating, like especially when I've played my other families and such, and they're not necessarily living in the same location. I lock the door because I don't want random Sims just coming in, and especially when the bug where they were stealing your stuff, I hated that. And so I would lock the door, but then I would invite a family member over and they couldn't get in. And so I wish you could choose specific Sims that you could unlock the door for, because if I could have, I would have locked the door for everyone except Big Red and Sienna. But since I couldn't, it's just open, of course. But that was really frustrating. And so now I was working on the little bedroom, and again, very orange. And, it is very orange, but it's kind of a muted down orange, like more of an earthy orange. And so I actually really like how it turned out. I'm pretty pleased with it overall. For such a tiny little space, I think it works out nice. But it's definitely, like I said, a lot of orange, but pretty happy overall with that. And so now I'm moving on to the main house, and of course, the dining room tables were so frustrating because I couldn't get the right colors. And I didn't want to use the same one that I used outside. And so I ended up finding this farmhouse table. It's not exactly the right color, but it works for the overall palette. And so I ended up using that because, like I said, I really wanted a large table where all the Sims could fit together. And so I needed the largest tables they offered. But unfortunately, they didn't necessarily come in the right colors either. So that was kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. So, and now I am working. You saw I placed down the kitchen, and I'm working on the living room here. And the living room is very tight and not very functional as far as like if it was a real living room, because there's only really one way to walk through. So you can walk through the chairs to kind of go sit down and such. But I mean, it's cozy, and there's enough seating, I think, for everybody. So that's always a plus as well. And I do end up adding a bar to the kitchen at the end, just because the space looked so empty and awkward. So I added a little bar at the end and put a couple bar stools where maybe the kids could eat breakfast or something like that. But this was definitely kind of a hard color scheme palette and getting the right colors that worked within the build. But I mean, that's kind of what doing these different little challenges are about, is to kind of get inspiration and push yourself out of your comfort zone. And I was, like I said, overall pleased with everything. And so this bathroom was quite large, but I didn't want to make it any smaller. And so I ended up putting a little laundry room in there. And so Blue has the downstairs bedroom, and so this is his bathroom. And since it was kind of the main floor bathroom as well, I tried to go with like a bluish green to kind of meld the colors together. Since it is still kind of the main floor bathroom and it's not necessarily just his bathroom, I kind of wanted to combine those aspects. And for his room, I ended up going with the same wallpaper, just in blue, but the same wallpaper that was everywhere else. And a darker floor because I kind of wanted it to have a little darker vibe. And I debated about giving him a single or double bed, but in the end, I figure he is a young adult now, and they would have probably given him a full bed, like a queen size bed. So that's what he has. And then just matching the different dressers, and of course he has to have a desk. And I gave him a computer that I thought would work well for gaming. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a bookshelf that was the right shade, and so I ended up turning this bookshelf black and brown, kind of match the tops of the dressers and the end tables, just because I didn't want that off shade blue. It was just too different from the other blues. It kind of matched the walls okay, but the other blues of the furnitures, it didn't match at all. So I ended up just changing that, even though I was trying to keep things as close to the color as possible. And fortunately, they did have a gaming mat that had the blues in it, so I was able to do that. And I did give him a little gaming console with a TV. I figured he might sit on the edge of his bed and play, or maybe pull the chair over, something like that. But he does have his little gaming console, and I did give him like a smart speaker, it's not an Alexa in the game, but I can't remember what it's called in the game. But like an Alexa, I gave him that as well. I figure he would be definitely the type to utilize that for sure. And then all these little posters, I thought they were fun, and probably something he would definitely be into as well. And he actually, in a roundabout way, like I can imagine my husband being very similar to him as a young child, or as a teenager rather, just because a young adult, whatever you want to say, not a child, but a teenager or a young adult, because my husband's kind of unique and extremely smart and very logic driven, and so I could kind of see, and he likes like anime and such, so that's why I really like putting up those posters, because it made sense to me. And I did forget to go back and change the lights. I thought about doing it room by room, but I kind of wanted the lights to match and maybe find one that had all the different colors. But I forgot to go back and switch that at the end, and so I never did that. I was thinking about it because I left Blue's room and jumped up here, and I remembered that this morning as I was editing things. I was like, I never went back and changed those lights. So that's something I definitely need to fix. And I might keep them with the basic lights, especially because I think it's going to be hard to find lights that match all the different colors. And then for the girls' rooms here, I did, since they're both purple, I did them at the same time so I wasn't having to jump around too much. So I found, each furniture that I wanted to put in there at the same time, since I was using the same filter for both of them. And so it was kind of harder, I think. Well, it was really hard for both of them because there just weren't colors that quite matched what I was wanting to go for. But for Violet, I had an even harder time because a lot of the purples that worked for her were either like more pinkish, and the purple I ended up going with does kind of have a pinkish tone to it, but luckily a lot of the furniture didn't match for her, which was really frustrating. But luckily they had, I think it's the parent pack, or I can't, parenthood pack, that has all the different furniture that I used, but it has matching ones. So it had a matching dresser and bookshelf and mirror and desk and end tables. And so that was really fortunate for me that they did have the matching. And I did actually end up changing her wallpaper as well, because I found one that had little flowers on it, and I thought that just fit her vibe a little bit better. And I think for indigo, I almost wish I had gone with like a dark purple with a darker trim instead of the white trim, but I didn't. So it is what it is, unfortunately. But I do think that would have maybe fit her aesthetic a little bit better. So it is kind of unfortunate that I didn't think of that until now. But I still, overall, I like how her room turns out, and I definitely think it works for her. And then Violet's room worked perfect for her. I did have a really hard time with the layout of Violet's room, though. I was having a hard time getting it all to work, and then the windows, and I wanted all those pictures. Like I said, she wants to be extremely successful in the music industry, but not like pop music or anything like that, but as a classical musician. And so I really wanted all those pictures and for her room to represent that. And then for Indigo over here, I just put a bunch of posters and just kind of, like I said, she does her own thing. Like, she's not really following the rules, or she's not that she's bad or anything, but she's has a mind of her own. So it's not that she's trying to get in trouble and create havoc or anything like that. It's just she has a mind of her own. She knows what she wants and she knows what she's doing. And so some of those posters kind of represented that, and so I made sure I put those up. And I was able to remember blinds. I forget blinds a lot. I forgot the blinds in Big Red and Sienna's house, but I remembered blinds here, so I guess that's something. But unfortunately, I had a hard time with the smaller blinds for the little windows, getting them to match the blinds I found for the big windows. And so I did find this blind here, and I ended up just shrinking it to put those on the small window. But that's always frustrating too, because you have different size windows and then you can't find blinds that match what you're putting on the main windows. So it's frustrating sometimes, but that's okay. And now I am working on the girls' bathroom, and so I really wanted to keep it similar to Blue's bathroom downstairs, just in a different kind of color scheme. And so I just pulled everything up, copied it, and pulled it up, and then placed it down as I went. And you can see their bathroom's very purple. I do change the wallpaper out a little bit, which you'll see that I do that during this recording. Even though a lot of things I did change. Well, not a lot of things, but several things I did change as I was doing the play test and figuring out how things worked. So, but I'm pretty happy with this bathroom, even though it's super small. I didn't have near the trouble I did in the other house with the bathrooms. So that was fortunate, and I did test these, and they all work. I didn't have to mess around with those at all or anything like that. And I did think about changing the doors to match, but the different rooms. But again, I kind of wanted all the doors the same, so I ended up just keeping the green doors for everything. And then I'm working on the parents' room now, and so there is a little outdoor patio. It's really small, but I put a little sliding glass door to go out there. And then, of course, they have their bathroom as an ensuite. I should have given them a closet. I should have given them a closet, but I didn't for some reason. And it did kind of pass, like a passing thought in my mind, but I didn't know where I wanted to put it. And by this point, again, I was getting tired, and I just kind of wanted to be done with this build. and so I ended up not putting in a closet, but I kind of wish I had. And then I struggled with the placement or the layout of this bathroom as well. And I don't know why I had such a hard time with this bathroom, but I mean, there's plenty of room. It should have been a really simple, straightforward. But just everywhere I put the bathtub, I didn't like it, and then I move it, and then I didn't like where the sinks were. And so I finally ended up putting the bathtub and the toilet together right there, and then the sinks just under the window. But I wanted to make sure I had room for the mirrors, of course. And I did give them a double sink. I figure since it's ensuite, I really like double sinks for ensuite bathrooms. I think it's super handy when you have a significant other and you're trying to get ready together to kind of have your own little space. And so I did the double sink for them. And then I was trying to figure out which bed I wanted to go with. And you can see this is definitely more Jade's vibe than it is Sunny's. But since a lot of the rest of the house has the yellow in it, I really wanted to go with green for their bedroom area. And then I did find the matching dressers, but I did do the two different colors. So of course Sunny's is the more gold one, and then Jade is the green one. But really happy with their room. I think their room's probably one of my favorite rooms in the house. And which is odd. I think I mentioned this in Monday's video, but green is not one of my favorite colors. I don't necessarily have a favorite color because I enjoy all the colors, but green, if I had to say, green would probably be lower on the list. And so the fact that I really enjoyed Jade and creating her so much, and then I really enjoyed this room, it's just a little bit odd because, like I said, green is not my favorite color, but I really liked how this turned out. And I definitely wanted to put the piano down in there, but there wasn't really room downstairs, and so I put it up in the hallway since there wasn't enough room downstairs for me. And originally I had wanted to have like a little music room, but I just didn't have the space for that. I probably could have made it the space, but for what I was creating, I didn't have the space to put in a music room. So but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out anyway. I could have maybe done an addition on the back instead of doing like the basketball hoop and the little outdoor area out there in the grass, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm trying to learn because I do these builds and then I'll nitpick and I should have done this, I should have done this, and I should have done this, and instead of just being happy. And it is about getting better, and so and recognizing where I could improve as I'm watching these builds, but I tend to be kind of harsh on myself, I think, and I'm trying not to be, trying to appreciate what I created and not be so nitpicky while still knowing where I need to improve. But definitely my goal for right now as far as improvement is on my windows and my roofing, because I don't think those ever look very good in my builds. The rest of everything I can kind of appreciate, even though there's areas I can, tweak here and there. But the roof and the windows are my nemesis, I think. So, and now I'm just trying to put a little bit of clutter in the space, kind of fill it up, make sure it's not so empty looking, but again, stay with the color palette. So I think some of the pictures don't necessarily go just because I was just trying to find anything I could to place down. So I kind of need to get better at that as well, making the decor a little bit more cohesive, I think, especially when I am doing these challenges where I'm doing certain colors or things like that. But overall, like I said, I'm really pleased, especially with each individual room. I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. So But it's winding down now, so I'm going to go ahead and leave you here to enjoy the screenshots. Like I said, please leave any tips or tricks you have for me in the comments below. And don't forget to tune back next week. I'm going to start working on different stereotypes, so if you have anything you want to create, definitely let me know. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next week. I'm really want to do like a farm build, so I think I'm either going to do like a country boy or girl or a farm boy or girl. And so, like I said, don't hesitate to leave any suggestions you have for that little series down below. And we will see you next Monday. Have a good weekend, guys. Bye.